President Bola Tinubu's special advisor on energy, Olu Van Hergen, has clarified her statement on the imminent 65% electricity tariff hike in Nigeria. The aide made this clarification in a statement on Monday. This comes just after the presidential aide barely 24 hours ago, hinted that Nigerians should expect a fresh electricity tariff hike within months. Her statement had sparked a reaction among Nigerians. Meanwhile, she said in a fresh statement to clarify that the country's current tariff covers about 65% of the actual cost of supplying electricity. And according to her, the federal government is still paying 200 billion naira on electricity subsidies. She, however, said 25% wealthiest Nigerians receive the biggest share of electricity subsidies. Earlier, business and public policy analyst Kenneth Ikenwa shared his thoughts on this development. Take a look.
Understand the direction that the economy is going in. I would have thought that when this government came on board, it came with a populist agenda. But even from the clarification of the statement made by the special advisor, you can see that some 25% of Nigerians are the ones benefiting from this subsidy in the energy sector, which means that there is an undisguised macroeconomic elitist agenda as against what was spoken in 2023 as a pronounced macroeconomic populist, people-centered agenda. Now, where this becomes the case with respect to the energy sector and this increase in tariffs, what we will see again is that the inflation rate, which is almost hitting some 40%, may be hitting the rocks of about 45 to 50%. Because if you increase these tariffs, if you increase these taxes, I see them as taxes on Nigerians or on businesses, these prices and these tariffs will be transferred to prices of goods and services that ordinary Nigerians cannot even afford for now, and that will inflate the economy. On the other hand, this disturbs the progressive activities that are economic related. It means that the activities that are supposed to boost the economy in terms of production and consumption will be reduced, and we will continue to rely on deficit funding rather than on organic funding of the economy to drive the economy in the path of growth. The third thing for me that bothers me the most is the fact that we don't really get the transparency with respect to the data that we actually need. At one point in time, a government agency can come out and say this, another point in time, some analyst is saying something else. So we must aggregate the issues and put the people at the center and see to it that Nigerians do not suffer more than they've had to suffer in the last 2 years.
And on to politics, the Edo State House of Assembly has urged the State High Court to affirm the suspension of the chairman of the 18 local government areas of the state. In a suit filed on January 28th of 2025, the House seeks a declaration that by virtue of the provisions of Section 20B of the Local Government Law 2000 Edo State, the first claimant, Edo State House of Assembly, has the power to suspend a chairman and or vice chairman of a local government council in Edo State. The House had on December 17th, 2024, suspended all the local government chairmen and their deputies for what it described as insubordination to Governor Monday Okpolo. And now to help us make sense of this, we're joined by legal practitioner Elvis Asia. Elvis, thanks for joining us. I have to start by asking, what constitutional or statutory powers does the Edo Assembly have to suspend elected local government chairmen, and how are these powers interpreted in this context? I mean, for insubordination?
Well, I think much has been said about the fact that the action of the Edo State House of Assembly was clearly unconstitutional. It has no place within the context of Section 7 and 8 of the Nigerian Constitution, and in particular, the Supreme Court interpretation of those provisions in July of 2024. And the High Court in Edo State also made such a declaration that the step taken by the Edo State House of Assembly in conjunction with the governor has no place in our law. Interestingly, the Attorney General, who is a member, so to say, of the All Progressive Congress, the APC-led federal government, also came up to say that within the context of the law as it exists today, no House of Assembly or governor has the power to do what they did in Edo State. And so that's clearly, I mean, there are a lot of judicial decisions on this point. The Constitution is very clear on this point, and in the light of the decision of the Supreme Court, going back now to seek some interpretation of a local government law, which has been, by virtue of that section of the decision of the Supreme Court, has been declared to be inconsistent with the Constitution. So I really don't understand what this is driving at. But what is clear is that the action of the Edo State House of Assembly has no place within the fundamentals of our Constitution.
And it doesn't also align with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution regarding local government autonomy, right?
It does not, because you see, I think the mistake that they are making, and I think a lot of people are also making a mistake, is that because Section 7 and 8 suggest that the states, House of Assembly will make a law to ensure the existence, the structure, the functions, of a local government, then that gives a state House of Assembly powers to do whatever it is they have done. But that is clearly not the case. What that section is simply saying is that you can make a law to define, to ensure there's a democratically elected system of local government across the country. That's what the law is saying. And when that is set in motion, you do not have the powers to begin to determine what happens to the local government. Democracy means that the council itself is answerable to the people, and by that, the people elect councillors, in our local government system, and that's what the Constitution is saying, and that's what the law. There's a limit on what the House of Assembly can do within the provisions of the Constitution. And it does not extend to granting powers to the governor or the House of Assembly to suspend, to remove, to do whatever. Because at the end of the day, if you say that the House of Assembly cannot suspend, what you have done is that you have defeated the whole essence of the Supreme Court decision, which is really the current position of the law on this matter.
And at this point, I have to ask, how does the judiciary play in all of this in just determining the legality of such suspension, whether or not they're going to step in? Or better yet, can the 18 suspended local government chairmen and their deputies challenge this ruling, this move, this suspension in court?
Well, my understanding is that, there was a challenge, but the suspended well, I mean, it was an attempt made to suspend. That suspension was ineffective. And the fact that it's ineffective clearly shows by this current action of the Edo State House of Assembly to seek to approach the court for an interpretation of their powers under the local government law. So by approaching the court to do so, they recognize, they acknowledge that there is something wrong with what they have done. And also, in view of the existing court process with respect to this matter, one would have thought that they could have applied to join that action rather than file another action. And there's a possibility of an abuse that might arise from this step. And then you also look at the fact that there was an attempt made to remove some of the local government chairman. All of these point to the fact that they also recognize that political action they took has no place in the law. It is hoped that the judiciary will step in to correct this anomaly, because one of the things we see with politicians is that they try to do forum shopping, look for judges that can make decisions that will not create confusion, like we're having in Rivers State and in many places across the country. And they try to design a case within a very narrow compass, so that the court or the judge is limited, and in the process, you now give a decision that is conflicting with the current existing legal understanding on a particular issue. I want to believe that is what is at play here. But I want to believe that, considering that the Supreme Court has made a final determination on this issue, no high court judge or any court that is inferior to the Supreme Court should be able to do something different.
Well, Elvis, we must say thank you for taking out the time to join us today. Elvis Asia, the legal practitioner, just giving us a bit of insight following the suspension of the 18 chairmen, local government chairmen of Edo State and their deputies. In the meantime, the Edo State chapter of the People's Democratic Party has criticized the All Progressives Congress for objecting to the submission of additional beavers machines in the ongoing governorship election petition tribunal holding in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The state chairman of the party, Tony Aziyegbemi, while speaking to News Central's Joshua Marayi in Abuja, says that the APC's rejection of additional exhibits stems from a fear that the true facts of the case will be exposed by the court.
What I find strange, and I think every Nigerian should find that strange, why would INEC, that certified those documents for us, the beavers machines have been in their custody. They brought those beavers machines to court. Their lawyer is saying, do not tender those, that they are objecting to the fact that the court should not accept those documents. That is strange. That is strange, because these are your documents. You certify these documents. The Form UC8A, this report we got from the RF portal, we certified all those documents for us. The beavers themselves, you brought them to court yourself, and their lawyer is objecting to presenting those documents to the court. That should be strange. It's either they are saying those are not their documents, or they are saying they don't want those documents, because the documents will bring out the facts of the case.
The national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, Shehu Gambam, says the economic policies of President Bola Tinubu may be his greatest undoing if he tries to be re-elected in 2027. Gambam listed some of the unpopular policies of the Tinubu administration, including the sudden removal of petrol subsidy, unification of forex rates, electricity tariff hike, and telecoms tariff hike, amongst others. He criticized the Tinubu government over what he described as its hostilities with opposition voices and denied claims that the ruling All Progressives Congress APC says pays political parties 50 million naira bribe to weaken their role in holding the government to account. Away from that, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim has called on United States President Donald Trump to have discussions with President Bola Tinubu to increase American influence in Africa and curb China's penetration of the continent. The senator representing Ondo South said BRICS Plus, a 10-member economic and political force with Chinese influence, has already approached the Nigerian leader on economic alignment and to trade in China's currency, the yuan. The lawmaker said China has started a campaign to be an economic superpower in Africa, and the U.S. must quickly dialogue with some continental leaders to whittle China's growing influence on the continent. In January of 2025, Nigeria accepted an invitation to join BRICS Plus as a partner country. You're watching news now on News Central Television. Let's go on a short break. When we return, former NHIS boss arraigned by EFCC and remanded in custody over financial crimes. We'll bring you the details just after the break. Join us again. And welcome back. The Federal Capital Territory High Court in Kuje area, council of Abuja, has remanded a former executive secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, Professor Usman Yusuf, at the Kuje Correctional Facility, pending his bail hearing. Professor Yusuf, who was arraigned by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on a 5-count charge bordering on alleged fraud, pleaded not guilty to the charges. However, following a plea by his counsel requesting that he be remanded in the custody of the EFCC pending the hearing of his bail application, which was rejected by the trial judge, he was remanded at the Kuje Correctional Facility. The case was adjourned to February the 12th. And now to the education sector, as workers of the polytechnics and colleges of education in Oyo State have threatened to embark on an indefinite strike from February 6th following the continued delay in the implementation of the approved minimum wage for the institutions by the Oyo State government. The chairman of the Joint Action Committee, Kola Lawal, made this known in a release issued on Sunday and made available to reporters in Ibadan, the state capital. Lawal described the delay in implementing the policy as an apparent neglect of the workers' welfare and an outright failure to uphold the state government's intention to ensure adequate remuneration for workers. He added that the development had placed undue financial strain on workers expected to deliver quality education under increasingly difficult conditions. President Bola Tinubu has signed the act establishing the Federal University of Environment, Ogoni, into law. Those in attendance, including the National Security Advisor, federal lawmakers, and representatives of Ogoni communities, say the gesture is proof of the president's commitment to remediation of polluted lands in Ogoni communities, creation of job opportunities for Ogoni youths, and the building of local capacity to support and help the remediation process.
The signing of this bill into law by His Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, demonstrates a strong commitment to addressing long-standing concerns and fostering a sustainable development in Ogoniland and Nigeria. This university represents more than just an educational institution. It is a beacon of hope, progress, and environmental restoration for Ogoniland, the Niger Delta, and beyond.
This landmark decision reaffirms Mr. President's commitment to genuine engagement, inclusive governance, and sustainability development in our region. In sponsoring this bill, Mr. President, I was fully aware of the vital role this university will play in addressing core aspects of the Ogoni question. The Federal University of Environment and Technology in Ogoni will serve as a beacon of hope, a place where our youth can acquire knowledge, develop skills, and foster innovation.
This university will offer courses in area of environment, environmental sciences and technology, and more so in areas of hydrochemistry, atmospheric chemistry, environmental microbiology, and environmental chemistry. This university will contribute to mid-level worker and high-level worker to support our oil industry. And beyond that, it will give enormous opportunities to our teeming young men and women who desperately need this opportunity. Today, the answer is here for the people of Ogoniland.
The swiftness with which the president responded to some of the things that happened in the meeting of the delegation of the Ogoni people that less than 2 weeks ago gives me great assurance that this is something different from maybe what we have been used to. I think this is a symbol, and it will send the message to several other communities that there is at least even peaceful agitations can also be rewarded, which is what the Ogonis have been known for.
Teachers have a significant impact on the quality of education and educational outcomes in Nigeria, as they play a vital role in improving the literacy rate and reducing the education gap in the country. Now, while the government recognizes that education is key to the stability of the economy, there have been calls to improve the welfare of its greatest asset, the teachers. News Central's Omolola Ololade has more in this report. Take a look.
Addressing the educational challenges in Nigeria means that the country must start with investing in content-related resources. While Nigeria cannot ignore the importance of investing in infrastructure and other resources, the best way to make a major impact is definitely through the country's greatest educational asset, its teachers.
There are teachers who have been teaching for over a decade who haven't accessed resources to teach, tools, materials, aids, instructional aids to teach in the classrooms for over a decade that they've been teaching. You have teachers who have been in the system for more than a decade who are not able to access training. They haven't accessed any CPD, continuous professional development training, since they put them in the school. Neither have they got any coaching support and what have you.
So you know that these days training teachers can come with a lot of costs, you know, sending them to School of Education and all of that. We need to mold the people who imbibe knowledge in our children. So, and that is why we've said you don't need to come in for physical training. Take the training online, you know, using technology.
Some of these teachers find themselves teaching in a range of challenging situations, from working in remote areas with limited infrastructure, with little or no support or guidance, and overcrowded classrooms with children sitting on the floor. The emergence of digital tools, especially the use of AI, may have enhanced teaching and learning, but it has come with its concerns about AI replacing teachers in schools. Educators, however, think otherwise, hence the need for continuous trainings for teachers.
Teaching is a human-centric profession. You know, sometimes the learners need to be encouraged to be able to come to that state where they can be open to receive everything they have to be impacted with. So the AI or technological tools might not be able to come to that point to determine this learner is not ready, is not emotionally, you know, ready or socially ready to take whatever he's going to be taught. But the human teacher will be able to sense that, encourage them, counsel them, make them ready, and bring them to that point where they are open to receive whatever it is.
Nigeria's education cannot exceed the quality of its teachers, hence transforming education outcomes for all students begins with teachers. In Lagos for News Central, I am Omolola Ololade.
Still on education. Now, the role of education in shaping the future and empowering the next generation has again been underscored. This discussion took the center stage at a recent ceremony marking the unveiling of a newly equipped block of classrooms in Ogun State, southwest Nigeria. While attendees described the initiative as a good start in providing a suitable learning environment for the younger generation, they urged relevant stakeholders to prioritize education by providing students with the tools and resources they need to succeed. And you're welcome back. 5,000 hectares of land has been earmarked for the improvement of agricultural activities in Benue State to aid food production and security in the state. Some displeased farmers across the 23 local government areas of the state have decried low farm inputs and irrigation facilities for dry season farming in the state, which has led to low productivity and income. News Central's Chizobanyo tells us more in this report. Take a look.
Addressing the educational challenges in Nigeria.
The availability of water remains very important for every living thing, including agricultural activities. It is more worrisome that this is coming from a state surrounded with vast arable land and water bodies that, if better channeled, will turn around agricultural yield in the state. Wishes of these farmers are that government at all levels make the availability of farm inputs a necessity, as well as other concerns of theirs. What an impact it will make in the lives of farmers if these claims of theirs are met by government.
We rented this farmland for irrigation farming. We are faced with challenges of fertilizers and other farm input, which has made farming more difficult for us due to high cost of things. We are calling on the government to assist us in subsidizing this farm input to enable us farm in all seasons.
Well, the people are complaining transport fare, and they say they buy chemical and fertilizer. There is very expensive in the market. That's why the price is high. We too, we buy from them, we'll go out, we'll sell high too, so that we'll get something inside too.
Everything now is expensive. Even transport to even come river here before we are coming 100 naira. The transport now is 300. So that's why we are tying vegetable 200, ugu 500, because all those things will cover our transport and we'll get something inside.
However, there are indications that all is being done to put a smile on the faces of these farmers.
So far, 5,000 hectares have been earmarked to take off this month. The land so far with some crops, like 5-6 crops will be tested this dry season farming to see how to get our people acquainted to the process, so that by next season the dry season farming will be expanded across the 23 local government areas of the state.
When all these words are put into action, one would expect that there will be more food to stem the tide of poverty, not just in Benue State, but across Nigeria as a whole. In Benue State for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyomi.
Residents of Bello Street in K2, which is in Lagos State, are calling on the government to intervene after demolition teams moved in unexpectedly, threatening to pull down marked buildings without prior notice. Many of the affected residents claim the process is illegal and say they were not informed or given any official documentation before the demolition began. News Central's lead correspondent, Benue Akede, visited the area and now reports.
It was an unusual and tense morning here on Bello Street, K2. News Central arrived after receiving distress calls from residents who claim their houses were about to be demolished without warning. Several buildings had been marked for demolition, but according to the residents, no proper notice was given.
My landlord didn't say anything about demolition or receiving anything when I rented out this place. And even till now, there's still no papers that has been shown to me. Then I asked around from the bailiffs that I saw, like, what exactly is going on? They said they have an order to demolish this old line for the street. They wrote like almost this on every house on this side of the street. And before our agents got here, we already lost a bit of security, which is our fence that covers the security of the house, the store. I'm very confused. I'm tired. I've cried because I'm really not sure what's going on.
While inspecting the area, it became clear that some buildings had been marked for demolition, but the markings appeared selective, raising questions about why certain properties were targeted while others remained untouched.
At this point, selected houses like this were marked with this identification. Some has gotten their fence down, all because of these documents. This is not a new house. This belongs to my father. The land, I built the house on it, renovated. How come the Obolukosi will just decide to come out of the blue moon and say they are taking possession? Waking up overnight to now say you want to take possession. Look at the house beside. The house is not included. The next house is not included. This house is not included. Why is it that selected house is being included?
Many affected residents, some whom had lived in the area for decades, are now calling on the Lagos State government to intervene before they lose their homes entirely.
Mo ti wà mí báyìí láti 88 ọkọ mi ti kú tí mo ti ń forí fa gbogbo wàhálà ẹ̀ tí mo wà nínú omi nínú ìdààmú pákó ni máa tò sílẹ̀ fi roko ń bí báyìí tọ́lọ́run fi ń bá mi tún bí báyìí ṣe tó di láàárọ̀ ìṣàlẹ̀ nìkan wá ń gbálẹ̀kùn gbàgbàgbàgbàgbà ìgbà tán ní wọ́n fẹ́ túnlẹ̀ yìí ta o kíjọba dìde kó ràn mí lọ́wọ́ o torí mi ìlẹ́nì kankan àfọlọ́run.
However, a man who claimed to be the son of the Onikosi, the traditional ruler of the area, spoke off camera. He alleged that landlords had been notified about the demolition plans and invited for discussions, but failed to attend. The situation remains unclear, with conflicting accounts from residents and local authorities. News Central will continue to seek responses from government officials to understand why these demolitions are taking place and whether due process was followed. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Benue Akede.
Away from Nigeria, the Sudanese Doctors Syndicate have reported a surge in fighting in Sudan's Darfur region, which has resulted in at least 248 people dead and wounded as airstrikes and ground attacks intensified in the cities of Al Fasher and Inyala. The Rapid Support Forces, RSF, have escalated attacks on Al-Fasher, the last major urban stronghold of the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, in Darfur since May 10th. 75 people were killed in Al-Fasher on Saturday, with 124 injured after airstrikes hit a transport hub and parts of Khartoum and Shangli Tobai. RSF shelling of the Abu Shank camp also killed 11 and wounded 18, causing a mass displacement of residents now facing hunger and exposure. And in Yala, 13 people were killed and 36 wounded on Saturday, also in airstrikes and ground attacks. In the meantime, the United Nations has condemned a series of deadly attacks on civilians across Sudan, including shelling at a market in Omdurman that killed at least 60 people, I beg your pardon. The UN humanitarian coordinator, Clementine Nwata Salami, called the attacks horrific and indiscriminate. Pro-democracy lawyers say artillery fire from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, struck the market in army-controlled Omdurman. Meanwhile, an airstrike on an RSF-held area in Khartoum killed 2 civilians. Fighting between the Sudanese army and RSF has raged since April of 2023, with renewed violence in Darfur and the northern part of the country. Nwata Salami urged an end to the conflict, stating that the suffering of Sudanese civilians has gone on for far too long. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a suspension of all future funding to South Africa, citing concerns over land exploration policies. On his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed South Africa was confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. His comments follow a bill signed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, allowing the government to offer nil compensation in some cases of land expropriation. Critics, including Elon Musk, have raised concerns comparing it to Zimbabwe's past land seizures. However, Pretoria insists the law ensures fair negotiations with landowners, with land and ownership still largely in white hands. 3 decades after the apartheid era, the issue remains deeply divisive.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that. It's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
In the meantime, President Cyril Ramaphosa rejected Monday assertions by Donald Trump that South Africa was confiscating land and said he was ready to explain his government's land reform policy to his U.S. counterpart. Ramaphosa says he is looking forward to engaging with the Trump administration over the recently adopted Expropriation Act land reform policy and issues of bilateral interests. This follows the U.S. statement on Sunday on cutting trade and aid to South Africa in response to the signing of the act by President Cyril Ramaphosa. In a statement, Ramaphosa said he is certain that the engagements will share a better and common understanding over these issues. Meanwhile, Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema has fired back at U.S. President Donald Trump over his threat to cut trade and aid to South Africa over the land expropriation bill. Malema accused Trump of being racist and trying to undermine the democratic process in South Africa. The land expropriation bill has been an issue in South Africa, with many calling for the government to take back land from white farmers. But critics say it could lead to economic instability and drive away investment.
As noted, the threat by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who has issued a threat to cut foreign aid to South Africa and impose sanctions on South Africa for adopting legislation that permits the expropriation of land without compensation, and implementing policies that addresses historical race-based inequalities in our country. The statement by Donald Trump is offensive and undermines our sovereignty, and is a reminder that our reliance on foreign aid and foreign direct investment surrenders us to the will of imperialists who use money to dictate the economic and policy direction of Africa.
Let's also tell you that Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, has also called for the closure of the Rwandan embassy in South Africa following the tragic deaths of 14 soldiers in the DRC, with allegations have surfaced that the Rwandan government is providing support to the M23 rebel group. Malema also urges that South Africa withdraws its troops in the DRC. Furthermore, for President Cyril Ramaphosa to take a stronger stance against Rwanda, accusing them of interfering in the internal affairs of the DRC and placing South African lives at risk.
The embassy of Rwanda should be closed with immediate effect because we cannot share the soil with the people who have blood of South Africans on their hands. Our reluctance to engage in warfare should never be mistaken as a cowardice, and our call for a retreat should never be confused as fear. Should the threats and attack on the South African National Defence Force persist while we call for peace and diplomatic resolution of the conflict continue, then South Africa must defend itself. To state the sovereign right of self-defense in the face of provocation is not warmongering, but a necessary caution that South Africa must and is able to recollect its strength and defend itself should it be necessary. It is imperative that South Africa withdraws its troops to ensure their safety. The escalation of tensions presents a clear risk, and it is unacceptable for our soldiers to be caught in a conflict where their presence does not serve the interest of peace in the region. Furthermore, should it be established that Rwanda deliberately targeted South African forces, then President Cyril Ramaphosa must act decisively. South Africa cannot continue diplomatic and trade relations with a nation that undermines its sovereignty and endangers its citizens. If Rwanda is found to be directly responsible for the attacks on South African troops, then all trade agreements and engagements with the country must be revoked without any hesitation.
Hey, welcome back. European Union leaders meeting in Brussels on Monday have warned that a potential trade war with the United States would have no winners, vowing to retaliate if former U.S. President, or rather current U.S. President Donald Trump, follows through on threats to impose new tariffs on the bloc. French President Emmanuel Macron insisted that the EU must assert its strength, stating that Europe will not back down if Washington moves forward with its trade measures. The 27 EU leaders, alongside with Britain's Prime Minister and NATO's Secretary General, I beg your pardon, had gathered in the Belgian capital to discuss European defense strategies amid rising tensions with Russia. However, their talks were overshadowed by Trump's recent tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, with Europe potentially next in line.
Die USA wie Europa profitieren vom Warenaustausch, vom Austausch von Dienstleistungen. Wenn jetzt Zollpolitik das schwierig macht, dann wäre das schlecht für die USA, schlecht für Europa. Klar ist, als starker Wirtschaftsraum können wir selber unsere Dinge gestalten und können auch auf Zollpolitiken mit Zollpolitiken reagieren. Das müssen und werden.
Well, I think Europe has been a bit lazy on the topic of defense. Mr. Putin has woken us up. I think we should spend more on defense, and the Belgian government has decided certainly to do so, and our budget is the proof that we are going to do it. I think we need to keep the relationship with the United States going, but having said that, reinforcing European defense on its own in the partnership of NATO and in the partnership of the transatlantic
As Nigerian banks release their FY24 results, investors are assessing performance beyond strong earnings. Stanbic IBTC saw growth in net interest income and operating income, but rising impairment charges and tax expenses raises concerns. Earlier today on Business Edge, during an interview with Nabila Mohammed, banking sector analyst, Chapel Hill Dunham Securities, shared her thoughts on NGX banking sector earnings review.
It dropped by 9.3 percentage points year-on-year, which is quite massive because it came in at 37.7% versus the 47%. It means that they were able to manage their costs effectively. That's one. Secondly, it also means that they were able to rake in more money through their income stream. That's talking about fees, talking about interest income, especially given the high interest rate environment that was throughout 2024. So all these things do feed into higher income vis-a-vis the expenses, and we see that results in a moderation in the cost-to-income ratio for the bank. So I would say from an operational efficiency standpoint, the bank did do well. The entire group of Holdco did do well in terms of managing expenses and improving income streams along the journey.
Head coach of Nigeria's under-19 cricket team, Sarah Bikita, has emphasized the need for increased sponsorship to alleviate the country to test playing status. She highlighted the importance of funding for improved training facilities and player development to help Nigeria's cricket stars reach their full potential. Speaking on News Central's flagship sports show, In the Game, the coach reflected on the team's remarkable achievement at the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup in Malaysia, where they secured a historic win or victory over New Zealand's Nigeria's first win against a test-playing nation. She believes that with proper investment, Nigerian cricket can continue its upward trajectory and compete at the highest levels of the sport.
We saw in the World Cup and the kind of facilities that the teams have, resources, because 4 member nations have different funding from associates. So if we can only get sponsors to actually fill that gap and enable the teams to get the necessary training and facilities around Nigeria, and also maybe the government just coming in to help grow the sport and build the necessary facilities. I don't see any reason why we will not get there in the next 5 years.
Tottenham Hotspur has agreed a deal to sign France's under-21 forward Matthew Stell from Bayern Munich. The structure of the transfer is yet to be confirmed, and it is unclear if it will be a permanent or loan deal. The 19-year-old reportedly rejected Spurs earlier this month, but it is now expected to move to North London. Nottingham beat Bradford 2-0 on Sunday at Tech Community Stadium for their first league win in 8 Premier League matches. Ange Postecoglou's side sit 14th in the table, but are in the last 16 of the Europa League and the Carabao Cup semi-finals. If the Tell deal is completed, it would be the club's second in 2 days after they announced the signing of Austria defender Kevin Danso on loan from League One club Lens on Sunday. And that's all we can take at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. President Tinubu's aide has made a U-turn on fresh 65% electricity tariff hike. Former NHIS boss has been arraigned by EFCC and remanded in custody over financial crimes. And we also told you that hundreds have been killed and injured in Sudan's Darfur airstrikes and ground attacks. Now, do remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422 on Star Times, channel 274. We're also on Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV.